Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
Two shots, back to back, to tie the game. On your home floor, on opening night, Caitlyn Clark misses. Kelsey Mitchell misses. Dallas Wings win 107-104. And the Indiana Fever faithful, the ones who packed Gainbridge Fieldhouse on what was supposed to be the most electric night of the young season, walk home empty-handed. Again, welcome back, everybody. I'm Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops. And today we are not tiptoeing around a single thing. We are going straight at it because this Indiana Fever performance was not just a loss, it was a referendum on everything that is broken about this franchise right now. The talent is there. The star power is there. Caitlyn Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston on the same roster should not be losing home openers to a Dallas Wings team that earned the #1 overall pick last year, because they were one of the worst teams in the league. And yet here we are. So let us get into every single layer of this disaster, because there is a lot to unpack. First, let me give you the full picture of what happened today, before I start making people uncomfortable. The Indiana Fever lost their home opener to the Dallas Wings, 107-104. According to reporters covering the game, this was actually the first time in WNBA history that both teams scored over 100 points in a season opener. And if you think that sounds like an exciting high-level basketball game, I need you to reset your expectations, because what that number actually tells you is that neither team played any defense. None. Zero. The Wings shot 60% from the field, 60%, and 52% from three. Let that register for a second. Your opponent converts more than half of their three-point attempts, and you still almost won the game, which tells you two things simultaneously. One, Dallas is not as good as that shooting performance suggests. And two, Indiana's offense, for all its dysfunction, can still generate enough points to hang around. The problem is that hanging around is not good enough. Not with this roster. Not with these expectations. This game featured the last four consecutive #1 overall picks, sharing the same floor: Aaliyah Boston, Caitlyn Clark, Paige Buchers, and newly drafted Azzi Fudd. The storylines wrote themselves. Clark versus Buchers. The return of a franchise player after an injury-devastated 2025 season. A new beginning. And Indiana responded to all of that narrative energy by getting outcoached from the opening tip to the final buzzer. Let me start where this whole thing starts and ends. Stephanie White and this defense, or more accurately, the complete, total, embarrassing absence of any defense. According to journalists and analysts covering the game, the Dallas Wings shot 60% from the floor and 52% from three-point range. Against a head coach who has repeatedly been described, by her own organization, in her own press conferences, as a defensive specialist. A defensive-minded coach, someone who was going to bring toughness and structure to a team that needed it. Where is the defense, Stephanie? Where is it? Because what I watched today had none of it. Not a drop. And here is what makes it genuinely infuriating. Paige Buchers finished this game with 20 points on 8 of 10 shooting. She shot 80% from the floor. Her only 2 misses were from the three-point line. She had 4 assists and 1 turnover. And the question I need someone, anyone, to answer for me is this. Why was Paige Buchers allowed to play one-on-one basketball for 40 minutes? Where were the traps? Where were the hard double teams? Where was the defensive scheme designed to take the ball out of her hands and force Dallas into a different action? Caitlyn Clark does not get to play one-on-one basketball. Every team in the league hard hedges her, blitzes her off screens, doubles her every chance they get. Clark has to work twice as hard just to get a clean look because defenses treat her like the threat she is. Stephanie White apparently does not treat Paige Buchers the same way. She let one of the most dangerous young guards in this league get comfortable, get into a rhythm, and absolutely torch Indiana all game. That is a coaching failure. That is inexcusable. And it was not just Buchers. Arake Ogunbowale had 22 points on 8 of 15 shooting. Odyssey Sims, again, the same Odyssey Sims who used to wear an Indiana Fever uniform, came off the bench and dropped 20 points. 3 players on that Dallas roster scored 20 or more points, and all 3 of them did it without ever looking truly uncomfortable. Nobody was in their face consistently. Nobody was making them think. The Indiana Fever defense was, from the jump to the final buzzer, a complete non-factor. Now let us get to the offensive side of this disaster, because the defense being terrible does not mean the offense gets a pass. The Indiana Fever's offensive identity in 2026 is the same as it was in 2025, which is the same as it was in 2024. Kelsey Mitchell isolation basketball. That is it. That is the entire system. Give Kelsey the ball, clear out, and let her hunt. And look, Kelsey Mitchell is excellent. She finished with 30 points on 11 of 22 shooting. She competed. She battled. This is not about Kelsey Mitchell, the player. This is about a coaching staff that has decided the entirety of Indiana's offensive architecture begins and ends with one player operating alone on one side of the floor, while everyone else watches. Caitlyn Clark finished with 20 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and 5 turnovers. 7 of 18 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. And here is the number that tells the entire story of Stephanie White's offensive philosophy. According to multiple analysts who tracked the game, Clark was used in pick-and-roll action somewhere between 3 and 4 times the entire game. For a player whose entire professional identity is built on using screens, reading defenses coming off movement, making decisions at the point of attack, she was essentially decoration for 40 minutes, a decoy in a Fever uniform. And here is the damning detail that makes it undeniable. The 2 3-pointers Clark made, both catch and shoot, both came off someone else creating and swinging the ball to her in space. The 7 she missed, all self-created. Clark hunting off the dribble, manufacturing her own looks, because the offense gave her nothing to work with. When a team's best offensive weapon is forced to create everything herself, because there is no designed action to free her, 2 things happen. Her efficiency drops because she is working harder for lower quality shots, and her body absorbs more punishment because she is carrying a disproportionate physical load. Neither of those things is acceptable when you have the offensive infrastructure to do so much more. And can we talk for a second about Sophie Cunningham? She took 2 shots. 2. In a professional basketball game. Sophie Cunningham, a knockdown shooter who was specifically re-signed to stretch the floor and create spacing for Clark in Boston, was given the ball as a shooting option exactly twice in 40 minutes. You bring a shooter onto your team and then you forget she exists. How does that happen? That happens when your offense has no movement, no scripted actions, no design sequences to get specific players open at specific spots. That happens when your offense is ISO and freelance and nothing else. Now I have to address the late game situation because it is the single most revealing moment of the entire 40 minutes. Indiana is down the stretch, trying to claw back. The offense needs a play. Stephanie White calls timeout. And according to multiple people watching that sideline, journalists, analysts, fans with courtside visibility, the huddle was effectively being managed by an assistant coach, while White appeared uncertain about what action to actually run. Let me be very clear about what that means. In the most important possession of your home opener, your head coach does not have a clear answer ready. She does not have a go-to action installed and repped and ready to execute under pressure. And what came out of that timeout? Clark was used as a decoy. Again, for what feels like the 100th time, your best offensive weapon, standing on the weak side, doing nothing, while someone else tries to improvise a bucket. And then in the fourth quarter, and this one is almost too bizarre to believe, multiple analysts covering the game noted that Aaliyah Boston was being used as the primary ball handler, bringing it up the floor for large stretches. Aaliyah Boston, your 5, your post anchor, your inside presence, running the offense from the perimeter in the fourth quarter of a one-possession game. Why? What possible logic exists for that decision? You have Caitlyn Clark, one of the best ball handlers and decision-makers in the entire league, standing right there on the same floor, and you are asking your center to initiate offense from the top of the key. It defies explanation. It defies reason. It is the kind of decision that makes you wonder whether there is any real structure in that building at all, or whether it is just organized chaos dressed up in a practice plan. Let us talk about the players who deserve better from this coaching staff, because there are a couple of bright spots in this wreckage that need acknowledgement. Michaela Timpson came off that bench and gave Indiana genuine energy. 11 points on 5 of 6 shooting, active defense, competitive effort on both ends of the floor. Multiple analysts covering the game pointed to Timpson as arguably the best performer per minute on Indiana's roster. She was decisive. She was efficient. She did not make the game complicated. She just played. And it raised an immediate question. Why is Myisha Hines-Allen getting rotation minutes ahead of her? Because Hines-Allen was a non-factor offensively. She is not a threat from the perimeter. She is not creating anything off the dribble. And she is not defending at a level that justifies her presence over someone who is clearly producing when she gets the floor. Raven Johnson only played 11 minutes. And the question deserves to be asked, what in those 11 minutes suggested she should play less? Because from what was visible, she looked fine. She was active, she made smart decisions, she did nothing to warrant being buried on the bench. The minutes distribution on this team makes no sense at a structural level. Players who are producing are being kept on the bench while players who are not producing are eating valuable minutes in a one-possession game. That is a coaching issue. That is a rotation issue, and it contributes directly to the final score. And then there is Ty Harris. 0 points, no meaningful contributions, a player who came into the season already compromised physically and has shown nothing on the court to justify a roster spot at this level. That is not a player you should be running out there in crunch time situations. That is a roster decision that needs to be revisited immediately. According to multiple Fever watchers and analysts, Kate Martin's name has been floated as a more productive option at that roster slot. And based on what we saw today, it is hard to argue with that logic. Now, let me give Caitlyn Clark her credit, even in the middle of all this frustration, because it matters. According to journalists covering the game, Clark became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 1,000 career points, 250 rebounds, and 250 assists, a milestone hit during this very game, on opening night, in a loss, which, again, is the most Indiana Fever thing that could possibly happen. Your star player makes league history, and the main headline is still the loss and the dysfunction surrounding her. But let us sit with that achievement for just a moment, because it is genuinely remarkable. She played only 13 games last season due to injury. She still got there faster than anyone ever has. The pace at which Clark accumulates numbers when she is healthy is a testament to her talent and her impact. She is not the problem. She has never been the problem. She is the answer that keeps getting asked the wrong question. And yet, and I say this with full respect, 7 of 18 shooting and 2 of 9 from 3 is not where it needs to be. Clark herself would tell you that. The good news is that 10 of her 20 points came in the third quarter, which was the only quarter Indiana won convincingly. And what changed in that third quarter? According to analysts watching the game, the offense shifted, briefly, imperfectly, but noticeably, toward a more Clark-centered approach. More movement, slightly more designed action around her, slightly less parking the ball in Kelsey Mitchell's hands and waiting. The result was the only 15-minute stretch where Indiana looked like a legitimate basketball team capable of winning games against quality opponents, which tells you everything you need to know about what this offense should look like and why it does not look that way for the other 30 minutes. The problem with Clark's three-point shooting today is not a talent problem. It is a shot quality problem. Every three she made was catch and shoot, the highest percentage version of her shot. Every three she missed was self-created off the dribble with a hand in her face, because the offense gave her no other option. That is a coaching problem masquerading as a player problem. And the sooner people in that building acknowledge it, the sooner this team starts winning the games it should be winning. Here is where I land as the dust settles on opening day. Indiana Fever fans, you are not overreacting. You are not being negative. You are not asking too much. What you watched today was a team with 3 legitimate star players, surrounded by solid role players, losing at home to a franchise that was one of the worst teams in the league last season. And it lost not because of talent, but because of coaching. The defense allowed 60% shooting and 52% from 3 from a team that should not be doing that to anybody. The offense ran 4 pick and rolls for the player it is supposedly building around. The rotation made no logical sense. The late-game execution was borderline incoherent. And the head coach appeared, in the most critical timeout of the game, to not have a clear answer ready. This is Stephanie White's 4th year in this role. At some point, the question stops being whether she needs more time to develop and starts being whether this is simply the ceiling of what she is capable of producing. The talent on this roster, Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, with young depth pieces like Timpson and Raven Johnson, should be competing for a playoff series deep into the postseason. Instead, they are dropping home openers and having the same conversations about the same problems that existed 2 years ago. No defensive identity, no offensive scheme built around their best player, no in-game adjustments that shift momentum, no clear answer in a timeout huddle when the game is on the line. The Indiana Fever are a better team than what they showed today. They are also a team that will keep showing you versions of what they showed today until something fundamentally changes about how they are being coached. And until that changes, the frustration you feel right now, that mix of knowing how good this team could be and watching it consistently fall short of that potential, is going to keep showing up on your timeline every single time the Fever take the floor. All right, Street Hoops family, that is the full breakdown. If you made it to the end of this video, you already know what we are about over here. No fluff, no sugarcoating, no takes designed to make anyone feel better about a bad performance. Just honest basketball analysis delivered straight. If that is the kind of content you want in your feed, this WNBA season, smash that like button right now. because it genuinely helps this channel reach more people who deserve to hear this conversation. Drop your take in the comments below. Do you think Stephanie White is the right coach for this roster? Is Caitlyn Clark's usage the biggest problem on this team? Is this offense capable of running anything besides ISO ball? I want to read every single take. Subscribe to Street Hoops if you are not already part of this community, because this is just game one of what is going to be a very long, very dramatic 2026 WNBA season, and we are going to be here for every single moment of it. I am Dre Fiver. Stay locked in. Call it like you see it.